Cold October rain pounds against our kitchen window as my father Robert slams his calloused fist on the wooden table, making my mother Susan's coffee cup rattle. "You stole from the Hendersons, Lewis. $5,000 in materials just gone." His voice cracks with disappointment that cuts deeper than any blade. My brother Tyler stands behind him, fake tears streaming down his lying face. "Dad, I saw him loading the truck at midnight." I want to scream the truth, but Robert's finger points toward the door like a loaded gun. The morning had started like any other Tuesday. I rolled out of bed at 5:30, grabbed my work boots from beside my dresser, and headed downstairs, where Mom had already started the coffee. The smell of bacon filled our modest two-story home in suburban Cleveland, and everything felt normal. Safe. I had no idea that in 12 hours my entire world would collapse around me. Henderson. Contractors had been my father's life work for 23 years. He built it from nothing after losing his factory job when I was 2 years old. Every calloused finger, every aching back muscle, every late night spent reviewing invoices represented his dream of creating something lasting for his family. The business specialized in residential construction and renovation, and Dad had earned a reputation for honest work and fair pricing throughout the West Side neighborhoods. Tyler and I both worked for the company, but our roles couldn't have been more different. At 22, Tyler handled the books and client relations, charming customers with his easy smile and quick wit. He wore clean polo shirts and khakis, carried a clipboard, and always seemed to know exactly what to say. I preferred the physical labor, working alongside Dad on job sites, learning the craft that had sustained our family through good times and bad. The Henderson project was our biggest contract of the year. A complete kitchen renovation for a wealthy family in Westlake, complete with custom cabinets, premium hardwood flooring, and top-of-the-line appliances. Mrs. Henderson had specifically requested the finest materials money could buy, and Dad had ordered everything through his most trusted suppliers. The job represented months of steady work and enough profit to carry us through the slower winter season. I remember feeling proud that morning as I loaded my tool belt into the company pickup truck. Dad had been talking about making me a foreman on the Henderson job, giving me more responsibility and a small raise. At 20, I thought I was finally proving myself worthy of the Henderson contractor's name painted on our truck doors. The accusation hit like a physical blow. Tyler's voice shook with what seemed like genuine emotion as he described seeing me at the construction yard at midnight, loading premium lumber and copper piping into the back of my Honda Civic. He painted a detailed picture of betrayal, claiming I had been selling materials to competing contractors for cash, while Dad worked 18-hour days to make the business profitable. "I didn't want to believe it," Tyler said, his voice breaking in all the right places. "But I had to tell you, Dad. Our family business means everything." Mom tried to intervene, her gentle voice, attempting to calm the storm brewing in our kitchen. "Robert, maybe we should sit down and discuss this calmly. Lewis has never given us reason to doubt his character." But Dad's pain ran too deep for rational discussion. His weathered face showed the devastation of a man who thought his son had stolen not just materials, but trust. 23 years of building something meaningful, and he believed his own flesh and blood had betrayed everything he stood for. "I trusted you with everything," Dad said, his voice raw with hurt. "The keys to the yard, the combinations to the storage containers, access to all our supplier accounts. You had my complete faith." I opened my mouth to defend myself, to explain that Tyler was lying, but the words felt hollow against his detailed accusations. How could I prove I wasn't at the construction yard at midnight, when I had been asleep in bed. Who would believe my word against Tyler's tear-stained testimony? Tyler had thought of everything. He mentioned specific materials that were actually missing from inventory. He described the exact route I would have taken from the yard to avoid the main roads. He even claimed to have seen me meeting with representatives from Miller & Sons, our biggest competitor. The rain grew heavier outside, matching the darkness settling over our family. Dad's work boots squeaked against the linoleum floor as he paced back and forth, processing the magnitude of what he believed had happened. His company, his reputation, his relationship with the Henderson family, all compromised by his youngest son's alleged greed. "You're not welcome in this house," Dad finally said, his words falling like hammer blows. "I can't look at you right now. I need time to figure out how to explain this to our clients, how to keep the business from going under because of what you've done." Mom gasped, reaching out toward me with trembling fingers. "Robert, he's our son. Surely we can work through this together." Tyler stepped forward, placing a comforting hand on Dad's shoulder. "I know this is hard, but Lewis made his choice. We have to protect the business and think about our clients who trusted us with their investments." I grabbed my worn leather jacket from the hook by the back door, my hands shaking with a mixture of rage and disbelief. My wallet contained $43 and a debit card linked to an account with maybe 200 more. No savings, no backup plan, no idea where I would sleep that night. As I stepped into the cold October rain, I turned back to see Tyler watching from the kitchen window. For just a moment, his mask slipped, and I saw something that chilled me more than the wind cutting through my jacket. Satisfaction. My brother looked satisfied. The realization hit me like a physical punch as I walked down our tree-lined street, rain soaking through my clothes within minutes. Tyler had been planning this betrayal for weeks, maybe months. Every detail was too perfect, too complete for a spontaneous accusation. He had set me up deliberately and systematically, and I had walked right into his trap. The first 3 nights in my Honda Civic taught me things about discomfort I never imagined possible. The Walmart parking lot on Pearl Road became my bedroom, though sleep came in brief, restless intervals between security guard rounds and the rumble of delivery trucks arriving for morning shifts. My back ached from contorting my 6-foot frame across bucket seats, and my neck developed a permanent crick from using my jacket as a pillow. During daylight hours, I haunted fast food restaurants, nursing single cups of coffee for hours while using their Wi-Fi and restrooms. The McDonald's on Brook Park Road knew me by name within a week. The elderly manager, Mrs. Patterson, never asked me to leave, though I caught her watching me with concerned eyes as I charged my phone at corner tables. My Planet Fitness membership became a lifeline for basic hygiene. $20 a month had never seemed like such a wise investment as I stood under hot shower water each morning, scrubbing away the smell of parking lot, sleeping, and desperation. Other gym members gave me curious looks as I spent longer than normal getting ready, but nobody questioned why I was there at 6 in the morning every single day. Amanda stopped returning my calls after the second day. When I finally reached her, her voice carried a coldness that froze my blood. "Tyler told me everything, Lewis. About the drugs, about the stealing, about how you've been lying to all of us for months. I can't be with someone I don't even know." The drugs accusation hit me like a freight train. Tyler had apparently told my girlfriend of 8 months that I had developed an addiction problem, that my erratic behavior and the theft were all connected to substance abuse. Amanda, who had never seen me take so much as an aspirin inappropriately, believed every word. My best friend, Marcus Rodriguez, lived in a small apartment complex off Ridge Road. When I showed up at his door on Thursday evening, soaked from another rainstorm and exhausted from another sleepless night, he welcomed me inside without question. His cramped living room had never felt more like sanctuary. "Your brother came by here about 3 weeks ago," Marcus said, handing me a towel and a hot cup of coffee. "He was asking weird questions about your schedule, about when you usually came and went from the construction yard. I thought it was strange at the time, but I figured maybe your dad was planning some kind of surprise or promotion." The coffee mug shook in my hands as the implications settled in. What kind of questions? Marcus pulled out his phone, scrolling through Instagram. "Look at this. Tyler asked me to help him update the business page, said your dad wanted to showcase completed projects. But check out what he deleted afterward." The deleted photos showed our materials storage area from different angles, clearly displaying inventory that I now realized was missing. Premium lumber stacks, copper piping bundles, expensive hardware packages. Tyler had documented everything before it disappeared, creating a perfect before and after comparison that would support his theft allegations. "There's more," Marcus said grimly. "My cousin Danny works at Miller & Sons. He told me some guy named Tyler Henderson approached their purchasing manager last month offering to sell premium materials at 50% below wholesale. Danny thought it was weird because Henderson contractors were supposed to be competitors." The pieces began falling into place with sickening clarity. Tyler hadn't just stolen materials randomly. He had developed a systematic operation documenting inventory, identifying buyers, and planning the perfect time frame to execute his scheme. And he had chosen me as his scapegoat from the very beginning. Marcus drove me to the old fishing spot behind Roosevelt Park where Tyler and I used to spend summer afternoons as kids. Hidden beneath the wooden bridge, Tyler had stashed an ancient tackle box that we used for keeping secret treasures when we were young. Inside, wrapped in plastic bags, I found receipts that made my stomach turn. Cash payments from Miller & Sons for surplus construction materials. Invoices from other contractors throughout the Cleveland area, all purchasing Henderson contractors' inventory at drastically reduced prices. Text message printouts showing Tyler coordinating midnight meetings behind our construction yard. Bank deposit slips for amounts that matched exactly with materials missing from our inventory. The timeline was devastating. Tyler had been systematically robbing our family business for over 4 months, selling thousands of dollars worth of materials, while Dad worked overtime to understand why their profit margins were shrinking. The Henderson job represented Tyler's biggest theft, yet $5,000 in premium materials that were supposed to transform someone's dream kitchen. But the evidence revealed something even more sinister. Tyler owed money to Danny Rodriguez, a local dealer who supplied drugs to half the kids from our old high school. The amounts were staggering: $8,000 in accumulated debt for cocaine and prescription pills that Tyler had apparently been using and selling for months. As I sat under that bridge, reading through Tyler's carefully hidden records, I understood the full scope of his desperation. He wasn't just a thief. He was an addict who had dug himself into a hole so deep that destroying his own family seemed like the only escape route. And he had calculated that I would be the perfect fall guy, trusted enough to have access, but naive enough not to see his trap closing around me. The burner phone was hidden in the bottom of the tackle box, wrapped in an old t-shirt. The text messages told the complete story of Tyler's operation. Negotiations with buyers, scheduling of pickup times, detailed discussions about which materials to target next. But the most damning evidence was a conversation with Danny Rodriguez from 2 weeks earlier. "Need to move the big stuff tonight," Tyler had written. "Kid brother getting suspicious, asking too many questions about inventory discrepancies." Danny's response chilled me. "Better pin it on someone else then. Cops asking questions about our business arrangement." Tyler's final message sealed his guilt. Already got the perfect setup. Lewis has access to everything, and Dad trusts him completely. By tomorrow night, he'll be out of the picture permanently. Jerry Miller hired me 3 days later after I showed up at his construction yard at dawn asking for any kind of work. His weathered face studied my calloused hands and the desperate honesty in my eyes before nodding toward a stack of lumber that needed sorting. $20 an hour cash daily. You work hard, you eat. You cause problems, you're gone. Miller and Sons operated differently than Henderson contractors, where Dad emphasized building relationships and charging fair prices. Jerry focused on volume and efficiency. His crews completed projects faster than most competitors, but they maintained quality through aggressive supervision and experienced workers who knew their craft. Within a week, Jerry recognized my skills with finish carpentry and electrical work. "You've got good training," he told me while reviewing my installation of crown molding in a Lakewood bungalow. "Your father taught you well. Too bad Henderson Contractors is struggling so much lately." The comment hit like a cold slap. "What do you mean, struggling?" Jerry's expression grew uncomfortable, like he had revealed something unintentionally. "Tyler Henderson has been approaching our clients offering materials at prices so low we can't compete. He's been claiming his family business has excess inventory from canceled projects. Some of our regular customers have started buying directly from him instead of going through proper suppliers." My hands tightened around the hammer I was holding. Tyler wasn't just stealing from our family business. He was actively sabotaging it by competing against us using our own stolen materials. Dad probably thought clients were simply choosing cheaper competitors, never imagining his eldest son was deliberately undercutting Henderson Contractors' pricing with stolen inventory. The Miller and Sons office manager, a sharp woman named Carol, pulled me aside during lunch break. "That Henderson kid approaches our suppliers too, trying to buy materials with damaged business checks. Our lumber yard called us last week because one of his checks bounced. The bank said the account had been overdrawn for months. Tyler had been forging Dad's signature on business checks, writing himself payments for fake invoices, while the real money went to pay his drug debts. Dad was covering the shortfalls with personal savings, probably thinking clients were slow to pay rather than realizing Tyler was stealing payments directly." Janet Morrison had been Henderson Contractors' bookkeeper and family friend for 15 years. Her small office above the hardware store on Lorraine Avenue smelled like coffee and copy machine toner, and her desk overflowed with the financial records of a dozen small businesses throughout the neighborhood. When I approached her about reviewing Henderson Contractors' books, Janet's face showed immediate concern. "Lewis, honey, I've been worried about your family's accounts for months. There are discrepancies I can't explain, payments that don't match invoices, transfers that your father apparently authorized but doesn't remember making." She spread the records across her desk like evidence at a crime scene. Bank statements showing automatic transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. Invoice copies with Tyler's signature forging Dad's authorization for payments to suppliers who had never delivered materials. Checks written to cash for amounts that perfectly matched Tyler's drug debt payments. "Your father has been covering missing payments with his personal savings account," Janet explained, pointing to transfer records. "He's moved over $30,000 from his retirement fund in the past 6 months, trying to keep the business solvent. He told me clients were struggling to pay on time because of economic conditions. The retirement money represented decades of Dad's careful saving money he and Mom planned to use for their golden years. Tyler had been systematically stealing their future while making Dad believe his business acumen was failing. Every month, Dad worked harder and longer hours thinking his pricing was wrong or his customer service was declining. never suspecting his eldest son was robbing him blind. But the cruelest discovery was Tyler's manipulation of my personal relationships. Janet showed me copies of forged text messages that Tyler had apparently created using photo editing software messages, supposedly from me to Amanda, discussing drug deals and criminal plans. The fake conversations were sophisticated enough to fool anyone who wasn't looking for deception. Tyler had also contacted Amanda's parents, expressing concern about my dangerous behavior and suggesting they encourage their daughter to distance herself from me. He painted a picture of escalating addiction and criminal activity, providing just enough specific details to seem credible while avoiding anything Amanda could directly verify. The scope of Tyler's planning became clearer with each piece of evidence. He hadn't just decided randomly to frame me for theft. He had spent months systematically destroying my credibility with family, friends, and girlfriend, while positioning himself as the concerned brother, trying to help everyone understand the truth about my supposed problems. Carol from Miller & Sons called me that evening with news that made my stomach drop. "Louis, I thought you should know. Tyler Henderson approached 3 of our biggest clients this week, offering to complete their projects at 40% below our bids. He told them Miller & Sons was going out of business, and they should switch to Henderson contractors immediately. Tyler was trying to destroy Jerry's business too, apparently believing that eliminating my new employer would force me back into isolation and desperation. But his strategy contained a fatal flaw. He was offering project completion prices that would bankrupt Henderson contractors, even using stolen materials. As I lay on Marcus's couch that night, staring at the ceiling and processing everything I had learned, the full horror of Tyler's plan became clear. He intended to destroy Henderson. Contractors, eliminate any employment opportunities for me in the local construction industry, isolate me from friends and family, and then disappear with whatever money remained. I wouldn't just be homeless, I would be unemployable and completely alone. The business checking account that Janet showed me revealed Tyler's timeline. Based on his current rate of theft and Dad's dwindling personal savings, Henderson contractors had maybe 6 weeks before complete bankruptcy. Tyler was planning to drain every remaining asset and disappear, leaving me blamed for everything while Mom and Dad lost their life's work and retirement security. I spent 2 days preparing my evidence package, organizing bank records receipts, text message printouts, and witness statements into a presentation that would convince any reasonable person of Tyler's guilt. Marcus helped me create a timeline showing Tyler's thefts correlated perfectly with his drug purchases, while Carol provided documentation of Tyler's attempts to sabotage Miller & Sons. Sunday evening felt like the right time to approach our house. Mom would be finishing dinner preparations while Dad relaxed in his recliner, watching football and reviewing the upcoming week's construction schedule. The normality of their routine made my exile feel even more surreal as I walked up our familiar driveway carrying a manila folder that contained Tyler's sins. Mom answered the door before I could knock, her face immediately crumbling into tears as she pulled me into a desperate embrace. She felt thinner than I remembered, and her usually perfect hair looked unkempt. "Louis, baby, I've missed you so much. You look terrible. Are you eating enough?" Her concern felt like a healing balm after 2 weeks of sleeping in parking lots and wondering if anyone in the world still cared about me. But her embrace also revealed how much weight I had lost, how my clothes hung loose from irregular meals and constant stress. Dad emerged from the living room, his expression cycling through surprise, anger, and something that might have been relief. For a moment, seeing his youngest son looking exhausted and desperate seemed to soften his heart. "You look like hell, boy. Where have you been staying?" I began methodically presenting my evidence, spreading documents across our kitchen table where Tyler had originally accused me. Bank records showing systematic theft text messages proving Tyler's drug debts, witness statements from multiple sources confirming his lies. Dad's face grew pale as he processed the scope of Tyler's betrayal. "This can't be right," Dad said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Tyler's been working overtime to help save the business. He's been handling all our bookkeeping, managing client relationships, trying to find new revenue streams. Tyler's arrival couldn't have been more perfectly timed if he had been listening outside." He burst through the front door with his usual energy, stopping short when he saw me at the kitchen table surrounded by documents. For just a moment, his mask slipped and I saw genuine fear in his eyes, but Tyler recovered quickly, launching into the performance of his lifetime. Tears began flowing before he even spoke, his voice breaking with apparent shock and hurt. "Louis, I can't believe you're here. After everything that's happened, after what you put this family through, you have the nerve to come back." Tyler produced his own evidence package documents that he claimed proved my guilt beyond any doubt. Email printouts showing me supposedly negotiating with competitors' bank records with my forged signature authorizing transfers, even photos that appeared to show me loading materials into my car at midnight. "He's desperate, Dad," Tyler said, his performance hitting every emotional note perfectly. "He knows the police are investigating him for theft, so he's trying to frame me to save himself. Look at these fake documents he's created. He's been planning this revenge for weeks." The fabricated emails were sophisticated, using actual email addresses and realistic formatting. Tyler had apparently spent considerable time and effort creating evidence that would support his version of events. Each document contained just enough accurate information to seem credible, while pointing blame directly at me. Dad found himself caught between two sons, presenting completely contradictory evidence, each claiming the other was a criminal and a liar. Tyler's emotional manipulation was masterful, positioning himself as the heartbroken older brother who couldn't understand why his sibling would try to destroy him. "I've been protecting this family," Tyler continued, his voice rising with righteous indignation. "While Louis was stealing from our clients and selling drugs to neighborhood kids, I've been working 18-hour days trying to save Dad's business, and this is how he repays my loyalty." The drug accusation caught me off guard. Tyler had apparently spent time creating a narrative where I was both a thief and a dealer selling stolen construction materials to fund my supposed addiction, while simultaneously dealing drugs to local teenagers. The story was elaborate and convincing, supported by more fabricated evidence. Mom tried to defend me, pointing out that Tyler's accusations didn't match my character or behavior over 20 years. But Tyler cut her off with more fake evidence text messages, supposedly from concerned parents in the neighborhood reporting my drug-dealing activities. Tyler's masterstroke was revealing that he had contacted the police about my supposed criminal activities, filing reports, and providing evidence that supported his version of events. He presented himself as the responsible family member who reluctantly cooperated with law enforcement to protect the community from his dangerous brother. "I didn't want to believe it either," Tyler told Dad, his voice heavy with fake sorrow. But when Mrs. Patterson from McDonald's called to say Louis was dealing drugs in their parking lot, when neighbors started complaining about suspicious activity around our house, I had to face the truth. Dad's anger reignited as Tyler's emotional manipulation took effect. The evidence I had presented seemed less convincing when compared to Tyler's tears and apparent heartbreak. Years of trust in Tyler's superior performance skills overwhelmed objective analysis of documents and witness statements. "I won't let you destroy this family," Dad said, his voice rising with renewed fury. "Tyler's been nothing but loyal and hard-working, and you're trying to destroy him because you got caught stealing. Get out of this house and don't come back until you're ready to take responsibility for what you've done." As I gathered my evidence and prepared to leave, Tyler stepped close enough to whisper in my ear. His breath smelled like stale cigarettes and something chemical that I didn't recognize. "You should have stayed away, Lewis. Now you're going to lose everything and there's nothing you can do to stop me." The satisfaction in his voice was unmistakable. Tyler had won this round completely, turning my evidence against me while reinforcing his position as the victim and the hero. Dad believed him, the police believed him, and I was back on the street with even less hope than before. Walking away from our house for the second time, I realized Tyler had been preparing for this confrontation since the day he first accused me. Every piece of evidence I might gather, every witness who might support me, every argument I might make, had been anticipated and countered with superior deception. Mom stood at our kitchen sink on Wednesday afternoon, mechanically washing dishes while Dad entertained his weekly poker group in the garage. The autumn sun streamed through windows that desperately needed cleaning, highlighting dust motes that danced like tiny spirits in the stagnant air of our disrupted home. The voices from the garage carried clearly through the thin walls. Dad's deep baritone mixing with the familiar tones of Tom Bradley from the hardware store, Frank Morrison, who owned the auto repair shop on Ridge Road, and Pete Sullivan from the electrical supply company. Their laughter sounded wrong, somehow too loud, and forced for the circumstances surrounding our family. "Had to kick Lewis out." Dad's voice carried pride mixed with pain. "Boy was stealing from our best clients. Can you believe that Tyler caught him red-handed loading our truck at midnight with premium materials meant for the Henderson kitchen renovation?" Mom's hands stilled in the soapy water as she heard Dad's version of events for the first time. In our house, Dad had spoken about my alleged crimes in hushed tones, but with his friends the story took on different details and a casual tone that made her stomach clench. Lewis tried to blame Tyler afterward. Dad continued his laughter, harsh and bitter. "Can you imagine his own brother catches him stealing and he tries to frame Tyler for his crimes? Tyler was heartbroken, couldn't believe his little brother would betray the family business like that." Frank Morrison's voice expressed shock. "I always thought Lewis was the responsible one. He seemed so dedicated when you brought him to job sites. Tyler was always more interested in the business side, talking about profit margins and expansion plans. That's what made it so hard to accept," Dad replied. "Lewis had me completely fooled. I was even thinking about making him a foreman, maybe eventually a partner. Tyler's the one who opened my eyes to what was really happening." Mom dried her hands with trembling fingers, her mother's intuition screaming that something fundamental was wrong with Dad's narrative. She had raised both boys, changed their diapers, nursed them through childhood illnesses, celebrated their successes, and comforted them through failures. The Lewis described by Dad bore no resemblance to the son she knew. Tyler emerged from his bedroom around 4 o'clock dressed in clean khakis and a polo shirt that looked expensive. His appearance had improved dramatically since my exile. His skin clearer, his eyes brighter, his whole demeanor more confident and relaxed. "How was your day, honey?" Mom asked, studying his face for signs of the stress that should accompany having his brother accused of serious crimes. "Better now that things are settling down," Tyler replied, his tone casual and unburdened. "I hate that Lewis put the family through this mess, but at least Dad understands the truth now. Sometimes you have to make hard decisions to protect the people you love." The conversation that followed revealed details Tyler had never shared with Mom. He claimed Lewis had been planning to start a competing construction business using stolen Henderson contractors' materials and client lists. He described elaborate schemes involving drug-dealing theft and systematic sabotage of Dad's reputation in the construction community. But Tyler's stories contained inconsistencies that Mom's sharp mind caught immediately. Details that changed from one telling to the next, timelines that didn't align with her own observations, explanations that felt rehearsed rather than spontaneous. Most disturbing was Tyler's apparent lack of genuine sadness about losing his brother to supposed criminal behavior. That evening, Mom decided to investigate Tyler's room while he attended what he claimed was a community college business class. What she found hidden behind his old baseball trophies made her heart race with fear and understanding. Small plastic bags that had contained white powder rolled dollar bills stained with residue and a digital scale that certainly wasn't for weighing baseball cards. Tyler had been lying about attending college for months. When Mom called the admissions office, they confirmed that Tyler Henderson had registered for fall semester but stopped attending classes after the second week. His tuition payments had bounced, and the college had sent multiple collection notices to their house address. The discovery of Tyler's drug paraphernalia explained everything: his improved finances, his willingness to destroy his brother's life, his desperate need for someone else to blame for missing money and materials. Tyler wasn't just a thief. He was an addict whose desperation had driven him to frame his innocent brother. Mom's call to Janet Morrison confirmed her worst fears about the business finances. "Susan, I've been trying to reach Robert for weeks about serious discrepancies in the accounts. Tyler specifically asked me not to contact your husband directly, said he wanted to handle the problems internally. But the signature irregularities are getting worse, and I'm not comfortable staying silent anymore." Janet's records revealed systematic theft going back 8 months, coinciding perfectly with what Mom now understood was Tyler's drug addiction timeline. Tyler had been forging Dad's signature on checks, intercepting client payments, and blaming missing money on economic conditions and slow-paying customers. The phone call to Lewis felt like reaching across an impossible chasm of pain and misunderstanding. When he answered Marcus's number with a tentative, "Hello?" Mom broke down completely, hearing her youngest son's voice for the first time since his exile. "Lewis, baby. I know you're innocent," she sobbed into the phone. "I found Tyler's drugs. I talked to Janet about the missing money. I know he's been lying about everything. I'm so sorry we didn't believe you." Lewis's voice cracked with emotion and relief. "Mom, I've been living in my car for 2 weeks. I lost my job, my girlfriend, my reputation, everything. But knowing you believe me makes all of it bearable. Tyler planned this whole thing to destroy me." Mom spent the next hour listening to Lewis describe Tyler's systematic campaign of destruction. The stolen materials sold to competitors. The forged documents. The fake evidence. The manipulation of family and friends. Every detail aligned with her own discoveries about Tyler's drug use and financial crimes. But revealing the truth to Dad would require more than drug paraphernalia and inconsistent stories. Tyler had spent months poisoning Dad's mind against Lewis, creating a narrative so compelling and detailed that contradictory evidence might be dismissed as desperate fabrications. Mom's investigation that evening uncovered Tyler's dealer's phone number, saved under a fake name in his contacts. Danny Rodriguez's number appeared in Tyler's call history dozens of times over the past 6 months, usually late at night or early in the morning. The timing correlated perfectly with Tyler's claims of working late at construction sites or attending study groups. As she sat in Lewis's empty bedroom surrounded by childhood memories and adult dreams that Tyler had systematically destroyed, Mom realized her older son had become someone she no longer recognized. The boy who used to comfort his little brother during thunderstorms had grown into a man capable of destroying that same brother's life to protect his addiction. But Tyler's greatest mistake was underestimating his mother's love for both her sons and her determination to protect the innocent child, while helping the addicted one find recovery. Mom began documenting everything she found, creating her own evidence package, while preparing for the difficult conversation that would expose Tyler's lies and begin healing their shattered family. Tyler noticed Mom's changed behavior by Thursday morning. Her usual cheerful breakfast routine had been replaced by distracted movements and careful observation of his every word. When he asked about her phone calls the previous evening, her evasive answers confirmed his growing suspicion that his perfectly constructed lies were beginning to unravel. "Who were you talking to last night?" Tyler pressed his tone casual but his eyes calculating. "I heard you on the phone for a long time. Just Janet about some bookkeeping questions," Mom replied, but her voice lacked its usual warmth. "Nothing important." Tyler's investigation of Mom's phone revealed Lewis's number in her recent call history, triggering panic that sent him into immediate action. His entire scheme depended on Lewis remaining isolated and discredited. If Mom was communicating with Lewis, comparing stories and sharing information, Tyler's carefully constructed narrative would collapse. Friday afternoon provided Tyler's opportunity to implement his final desperate strategy. Dad had taken Mom grocery shopping, leaving Tyler alone in the house with access to the business checking account and Lewis's abandoned bedroom. The remaining $12,000 in Henderson Contractors' operating account represented the company's last hope for survival money earmarked for materials and payroll for the next month. Tyler's withdrawal of the entire amount took less than 10 minutes at the drive-through bank window. The teller, recognizing him as Robert Henderson's son and authorized signatory, processed the transaction without question. $12,000 in cash fit easily into a manila envelope that Tyler hid in his jacket pocket. But stealing the money was only the first part of Tyler's plan. To maintain his victim narrative and redirect suspicion back to Lewis, Tyler needed to create physical evidence of Lewis's alleged return and violent confrontation. The self-inflicted injuries had to look convincing while remaining superficial enough to avoid serious medical attention. Using a utility knife from Dad's toolbox, Tyler created shallow cuts on his forearms and a small laceration near his hairline that would bleed dramatically without requiring stitches. A few well-placed bruises from hitting himself with a hammer handle completed the tableau of someone who had been attacked but fought back successfully. Tyler's call to 911 demonstrated Oscar-worthy performance skills. His voice shook with apparent terror and pain as he reported that Lewis had broken into the house, attacked him during an attempted robbery, and escaped with the remaining business funds. Every detail was calculated to support his narrative while eliminating any possibility of Lewis defending himself. "My brother came back for revenge," Tyler sobbed into the phone. "He blamed me for exposing his theft, said he was going to destroy our whole family. When I tried to stop him from taking the money, he went crazy and started hitting me with something metal." The police arrived within 8 minutes, finding Tyler bleeding and apparently traumatized in our kitchen. His story was consistent and detailed. Lewis had entered through the back door using his old key, gone directly to Dad's desk where the business checkbook was kept, and attacked Tyler when confronted about the theft. Tyler's fabricated timeline placed the alleged attack at 2:30 in the afternoon, when Dad and Mom were grocery shopping and multiple neighbors could confirm Lewis wasn't in the vicinity. But Tyler claimed Lewis had been watching the house, waiting for the perfect opportunity to steal whatever money remained. "He threatened to kill all of us," Tyler told the responding officers, his voice breaking with convincing emotion. "Said if he couldn't have the business, he'd make sure nobody could. I think my little brother has completely lost his mind." The empty business checking account provided compelling evidence for Tyler's robbery claim. Bank records showed the withdrawal had been made using Lewis's old signature card, which Tyler had forged with sufficient skill to pass casual inspection. The timing aligned perfectly with Tyler's reported attack timeline. When Dad and Mom returned from grocery shopping to find police cars in their driveway and Tyler bleeding in their kitchen, the shock sent Dad into a rage that consumed his rational thinking. The idea that his youngest son had become violent and dangerous pushed Dad beyond his emotional breaking point. Lewis was always jealous of Tyler. Dad told the police his pain making Tyler's lies seem more credible. Tyler got promoted to handling the books, had more client interaction, was being groomed for partnership someday. Lewis couldn't handle his brother's success. Mom tried to defend Lewis, explaining about her recent discoveries regarding Tyler's drug use and lies. But Tyler's physical injuries and apparent trauma overshadowed her concerns about inconsistencies in his stories. The immediate evidence supported Tyler's version of events, making Mom's doubts seem like maternal denial. Tyler's masterstroke was adding attempted murder charges to the theft allegations. He claimed Lewis had threatened to burn down the house with the family inside to destroy everything Dad had worked for as revenge for exposing his crimes. The escalation from theft to violence to threatened murder painted Lewis as increasingly dangerous and unstable. The warrant for Lewis's arrest was issued within hours, charging him with aggravated assault, grand theft, and making terrorist threats. Tyler's fabricated evidence was sufficient to convince a judge that Lewis represented a clear and present danger to his family and community. A manhunt began immediately with Lewis's photo distributed to police departments throughout the Cleveland area. Tyler celebrated privately that evening while Dad made arrangements to close Henderson Contractors permanently. The combination of missing materials, stolen money, and family scandal had destroyed the business's reputation beyond recovery. Dad talked about selling the house and starting over somewhere nobody knew their family name, but Tyler's final gambit contained a fatal flaw that would ultimately expose his entire web of lies. The $12,000 in cash burning a hole in his jacket pocket represented more than stolen business funds. It was evidence of his guilt that he couldn't resist using to solve his most pressing problem. Danny Rodriguez had been pressuring Tyler for payment on his $8,000 drug debt, threatening violence if the money wasn't delivered by Friday night. Tyler's desperation to pay Danny would lead him to make the one mistake that would bring his entire house of cards crashing down around him. Danny Rodriguez's arrest on Saturday night for distribution of controlled substances set in motion a chain of events that Tyler never anticipated. Caught with enough cocaine and prescription pills to warrant federal charges, Danny immediately offered information about his clients and suppliers in exchange for reduced sentencing. The timing couldn't have been more devastating for Tyler. Less than 24 hours after reporting Lewis for robbery and assault, Tyler had met Danny behind the abandoned shopping center on Pearl Road, paying $8,000 in cash to settle his accumulated drug debt. Danny's detailed records of the transaction included photos and text messages that contradicted Tyler's victim narrative completely. "Kid paid me with crisp hundreds still in bank wrappers," Danny told federal investigators. Said his family's construction business had come into some money and he could finally settle his account. Seemed real happy about it, not like someone who'd just been beaten up by his brother. Danny's phone contained months of text message conversations with Tyler documenting their business relationship. The messages revealed Tyler's growing desperation as his debts accumulated his promises to pay using family money, and his specific timeline for settling the account that aligned perfectly with the Henderson Contractors' theft. Janet Morrison's call to police on Monday morning provided the second devastating blow to Tyler's credibility. After spending the weekend reviewing Henderson Contractors' financial records, Janet had discovered the full scope of Tyler's systematic theft and forgery operation. "I found evidence of financial crimes going back 8 months," Janet told Detective Sarah Williams. "Tyler Henderson has been forging his father's signature on checks, intercepting client payments, and stealing materials to sell independently. The total theft exceeds $60,000. Janet's evidence included photocopies of forged checks, documentation of intercepted client payments, and records of Tyler's unauthorized business loans that Robert had never seen. The pattern of systematic theft contradicted Tyler's claims about Lewis being responsible for missing money and materials. More damaging to Tyler's case were Janet's records of his specific requests regarding the investigation. Tyler asked me repeatedly not to contact his father about the financial discrepancies," Janet explained. "He claimed he was handling the problems internally and would resolve everything without involving law enforcement." Jerry Miller's testimony provided the third pillar of evidence against Tyler's narrative. Jerry had documented every instance of Tyler approaching his clients, suppliers, and employees over the past month. Security camera footage from Miller & Sons showed Tyler attempting to sell stolen materials in their parking lot just days before accusing Lewis of theft. "Tyler Henderson tried to destroy my business by stealing my clients and undercutting my prices using stolen materials," Jerry told investigators. "Lewis Henderson is one of the most honest workers I've ever hired. The idea that he's a thief is completely ridiculous." Jerry's evidence included recordings of Tyler's phone calls attempting to poach clients, copies of Tyler's fraudulent business proposals, and witness statements from multiple employees who had observed Tyler's suspicious activities. The Henderson family clients began coming forward with their own evidence of Tyler's deception. Mrs. Henderson revealed that Tyler had approached her about purchasing surplus materials at 50% below retail price, claiming the materials were left over from canceled projects. "Tyler specifically told me not to mention the transaction to his father," Mrs. Henderson explained. "He said Robert Henderson was old-fashioned about business practices and wouldn't understand modern efficiency methods. I thought it was strange, but the savings were significant." 3 other clients provided similar testimony about Tyler's unauthorized material sales, all occurring within weeks of the alleged theft that he had blamed on Lewis. The timing and systematic nature of Tyler's activities contradicted his claims about discovering Lewis's crimes. Detective Williams's review of Tyler's medical records revealed inconsistencies in his reported assault injuries. The cuts and bruises appeared self-inflicted, lacking the random pattern typical of defensive wounds. The emergency room physician noted that Tyler's injuries seemed oddly precise and superficial for someone reporting a violent confrontation. Bank security footage provided the final piece of evidence destroying Tyler's credibility. Cameras clearly showed Tyler withdrawing $12,000 from Henderson Contractors' account at 2:15 on Friday afternoon, 15 minutes before he claimed Lewis had attacked him and stolen the money. Tyler's forged signature on the withdrawal slip was sophisticated but imperfect under expert analysis. Handwriting specialists confirmed that Tyler had practiced Lewis's signature extensively, creating multiple samples before attempting the final forgery. The premeditation was obvious and damning. When confronted with overwhelming evidence on Tuesday morning, Tyler's carefully constructed facade finally crumbled completely. Faced with federal drug charges, multiple counts of fraud and forgery, filing false police reports, and evidence of systematic theft, Tyler broke down in Detective Williams's interview room. "I never meant for it to go this far," Tyler sobbed. His performance skills finally exhausted by the weight of his lies. "The drugs made me desperate, and Lewis was always Dad's favorite anyway. Everything I did, Lewis could do better. I thought if he was gone, Dad would finally see my value," Tyler's confession revealed the depth of his resentment and addiction-driven desperation. Years of feeling overshadowed by Lewis's natural abilities and honest character had festered into destructive jealousy. When drug debts began overwhelming his financial resources, framing Lewis seemed like the perfect solution to multiple problems. I figured Lewis would just leave town and start over somewhere else. Tyler continued. I never intended for him to get arrested or charged with serious crimes. I just wanted him out of the picture long enough for me to fix the money problems and prove myself to Dad. The confession continued for 3 hours, with Tyler detailing every aspect of his systematic campaign to destroy Lewis's life. The forged evidence, the planted drugs, the manipulated witnesses, the stolen money, the fake assault all poured out in a desperate attempt to minimize his legal consequences. Dad arrived at the police station within an hour of Tyler's arrest, his face showing the devastation of a man whose entire understanding of his family had been shattered. 23 years of building Henderson contractors, decades of trust in his eldest son, months of believing lies about his youngest son, all destroyed in a single morning. The local news coverage that evening cleared Lewis's name publicly while exposing Tyler's elaborate deception to the entire Cleveland construction community. The story of fraternal betrayal and systematic fraud captured public attention, but for Dad, it represented the complete collapse of everything he had worked to build. 6 months later, I stood in the morning sunlight streaming through the windows of our newly renovated office, watching Dad carefully review blueprints for the Morrison family addition. His weathered hands moved with the same precision I remembered from childhood, but his approach to the business had fundamentally changed. Trust, once freely given, now required verification and documentation. Jerry Miller's partnership proposal had saved Henderson Contractors from bankruptcy while providing Dad with the oversight systems necessary to prevent future fraud. The merged company, Henderson Miller Construction, combined Dad's reputation for quality craftsmanship with Jerry's efficient operational procedures and financial controls. Lewis, can you double-check these electrical specifications? Dad asked, his voice carrying a respect that had been absent before Tyler's betrayal. Your expertise with residential wiring has improved significantly since working with Jerry's crew. The reconstruction of our professional relationship happened gradually built on honest communication and mutual recognition of past mistakes. Dad acknowledged that his favoritism toward Tyler had been based on charm rather than character, while I learned to appreciate Dad's wisdom about balancing quality with profitability. Tyler's sentencing hearing had taken place 3 weeks earlier. 18 months in county jail, followed by supervised probation and mandatory addiction counseling. The judge's decision emphasized rehabilitation over punishment, recognizing Tyler's drug addiction as a contributing factor to his criminal behavior. I attended every court hearing not as an accuser seeking revenge, but as a brother hoping for Tyler's recovery. The addiction counselor explained that Tyler's resentment and drug use had created a psychological state where destroying my life seemed rational and necessary for his survival. Recovery requires taking responsibility for harm caused to others, the counselor explained during a family session. Tyler needs to understand that his actions weren't just crimes against property, but betrayals of the people who loved him most. Tyler's letters from jail arrived weekly, each one more honest and remorseful than the last. His handwriting, once confident and manipulative, now showed the shaky vulnerability of someone confronting their deepest failures. The letters didn't ask for forgiveness. They simply acknowledged truth and expressed genuine sorrow for the pain he had caused. I spent years believing that Dad loved you more because you were naturally good at things I had to struggle with, Tyler wrote in one particularly moving letter. I convinced myself that destroying your reputation would make me look better by comparison. I realize now that Dad had enough love for both of us, and I threw away my portion through my own choices. Amanda's return to my life happened gradually, beginning with a tentative text message 3 months after Tyler's arrest. The local news coverage had reached her in Columbus, where she was finishing nursing school, and she wanted to apologize for believing Tyler's lies without giving me a chance to defend myself. "I should have known your character better," she said during our first phone conversation. 8 months of dating someone doesn't prepare you to recognize elaborate deception, but it should have been enough for me to trust your honesty over someone else's accusations. Our relationship rebuilt slowly, with both of us understanding that trust once broken required patience and consistent behavior to restore. Amanda's nursing career had given her insights into addiction and family dysfunction that helped her understand Tyler's motivations without excusing his actions. Henderson Miller Construction grew beyond its original scope within 4 months of the merger. Jerry's contacts in the commercial construction market, combined with Dad's reputation for residential quality, created opportunities neither could have achieved independently. We hired 6 additional workers and expanded into bathroom renovations and small office projects. My role evolved from general laborer to project foreman to junior partner with Dad, insisting on profit sharing and decision-making authority that reflected my contributions to the company's success. Jerry's mentorship taught me business management skills that complemented Dad's technical expertise, preparing me for eventual leadership of the expanded operation. The Henderson house underwent its own renovation that winter. Mom's insistence on removing reminders of Tyler's deception led to repainting walls, replacing furniture, and creating photo albums that celebrated family memories while acknowledging the pain Tyler's addiction had caused everyone. Healing doesn't mean pretending Tyler's crimes didn't happen, Mom explained while organizing family pictures. But it does mean choosing to focus on love rather than resentment, on building rather than destroying, on forgiveness rather than revenge. Family dinners resumed in January, but with new traditions that emphasized honest communication and emotional safety. We discussed work challenges, relationship concerns, and personal struggles without judgment or comparison. The dinner table that had witnessed Tyler's accusations became a place of healing and reconnection. Tyler's first supervised visit home occurred on a warm spring afternoon. His appearance showed the physical and emotional costs of addiction and incarceration. Thinner, paler, but with clearer eyes and more genuine expression than I had seen in years. The reunion was awkward but hopeful, filled with careful words and tentative gestures. "I know I can't undo the damage I caused," Tyler said during that first visit. "But I want to spend the rest of my life proving that I'm grateful for this family's willingness to help me become someone worthy of your love." The addiction counseling sessions included our entire family, helping us understand enabling behaviors, recognize warning signs of relapse, and establish healthy boundaries that supported Tyler's recovery while protecting everyone's emotional well-being. Recovery, we learned, was a family process requiring patience and realistic expectations. My relationship with Dad deepened as we worked together rebuilding what Tyler's addiction had nearly destroyed. Late evening conversations in the workshop revealed Dad's own struggles with guilt about missing Tyler's problems, favoritism that had created unhealthy competition between his sons, and fears about the family's financial future. "I failed both my boys in different ways," Dad admitted one evening while we reviewed plans for the Jenkins bathroom renovation. "I put too much pressure on Tyler to be something he wasn't, and I didn't give you enough credit for the man you were becoming. I'm grateful for the chance to do better." Mom's strength throughout the crisis amazed everyone who knew our family. Her investigation had exposed Tyler's lies. Her love had sustained me through homelessness and false accusations, and her wisdom guided our family's healing process. She returned to work part-time at the elementary school, finding purpose in helping other families navigate difficult circumstances. The construction industry in Cleveland embraced our family's story of redemption and recovery. Clients specifically requested Henderson Miller Construction because they wanted to support a business that had overcome adversity through honesty and hard work. Our reputation grew beyond our local neighborhood to encompass the entire West Side construction market. Jerry's daughter Amanda, a recent college graduate with a business degree, joined our company as office manager and marketing coordinator. Her fresh perspective on customer service and digital marketing helped us reach younger clients while maintaining our traditional values of quality craftsmanship and fair pricing. Tyler's release from jail 6 months later marked the beginning of a new chapter rather than a return to old patterns. He moved into a supervised living facility, found work at a warehouse, and attended daily addiction counseling sessions. His relationship with our family remained limited but positive, focused on earning trust through consistent behavior rather than words. Standing in our expanded workshop on a Saturday morning 1 year after Tyler's arrest, I watched Dad teach his 5-year-old grandson Charlie basic carpentry skills. 3 generations working together, building something beautiful from raw materials, represented everything our family had learned about resilience, forgiveness, and the power of honest work. The lessons from my 21st year had become the foundation for everything that followed. Trust must be earned through consistent actions, not charming words. Family love includes accountability alongside forgiveness. Character is revealed not by success, but by how someone responds to failure and temptation. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the greatest discoveries about ourselves and our capacity for forgiveness. I told the small group of young men I mentored at the community center. My brother's lies nearly destroyed our family, but in the end, they forced us to build something stronger and more honest than what we had before. Henderson Miller Construction now employs 12 people, serves clients throughout northern Ohio, and maintains the highest customer satisfaction ratings in our market segment. But more importantly, our family learned that recovery from betrayal requires courage, patience, and a commitment to choosing love over resentment every single day. Tyler completed his probation successfully and now works as a counselor helping other addicts navigate early recovery. Our relationship remains careful but genuine, built on his acknowledgement of harm caused and his commitment to making different choices. He will never again be trusted with family finances or business decisions, but he has earned his place at our dinner table through years of consistent honesty. Mom and Dad celebrated their 30th wedding anniversary last month with a renewal ceremony that emphasized their commitment to facing future challenges together. Their love survived Tyler's addiction, financial crisis, and family betrayal because they chose to support each other rather than assign blame for circumstances beyond their control. As I finish this story, I want to ask you something that I hope will encourage you to reflect on your own experiences. Have you ever faced a situation where someone you trusted betrayed you completely? And how did you find the strength to forgive while still protecting yourself? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please consider giving it a like to help others who might be struggling with family betrayal find hope and healing. Don't forget to subscribe for more true stories about overcoming life's most difficult challenges. And please share this video with anyone who needs to be reminded that even the darkest situations can lead to brighter futures when we choose integrity over revenge. Thank you for listening to my story and for being part of a community that believes in second chances, family healing, and the power of truth to set us free. I wish you strength in your own journey and hope that you never have to face the kind of betrayal I experienced, but that if you do, you'll remember that love and honesty always triumph in the end.